Welcome to the Golf Kingdom, where we do all kinds of risky things, and it's our risk and reward show, and we've got the Jenga risk and reward game set up, which is kind of like golf. You got to take some chances in Jenga, you got to take some chances in golf. Let's look at the show and bring it in and talk about it here. We've got Build It, and we've got the pop culture segments. Those are both about risk. We've got risky business in the pop culture segment. Right in the middle, it's Keep It Simple Strano, the KISS segment. I'm going to tell you how to take your camera on your phone and line it up perfectly to take video of your swing, and then how to put a simple line on there and kind of see something that's going on to help your game. In the middle of the show, it's Stranogy, and it's Just Hot Air. And in the It's Just Hot Air segment, we've got a Golf Kingdom quiz for you you're not going to want to miss. And you're not going to want to miss our guest, Jerry Haas, one of the greatest players on tour and one of the greatest coaches in college golf. We're going to tie it all up with Golfer in Black and Time to Rise in the end. Are you ready for risk? Because I am here in the Golf Kingdom.
Welcome to the #1 golf variety show in the world, the Golf Kingdom. Are you ready to build your game? Here's your host, Rob Strano.
Well, welcome back, and it's our Build It segment here, and we're going to talk about some risky things that maybe you're undertaking with your golf swing as you start the new year and maybe want to get more turn in your backswing. So we have to understand there are some things that we have to do correctly, or things we have to understand in order to not mess this up. First thing we have to do is, if we're trying to get more backswing so we can get more punch, because if you don't have much of a backswing, there's not much of a punch. It's like this. The more we get back here, the more punch we have coming through, more power we get. So if you're looking for more power, we're trying to get a bigger backswing, but we have to check and make sure you can do it to start with. So everybody get up. This is an all skate. I'm going to give you a simple little thing to do here to check where your backswing can go. So you're going to get set up. Normal stance with, like you got a driver in your hand. Let your arms hang down. Bring your trail hand underneath your lead hand. Put the back of the hand against the back of the hand. And using the trail hand, you're going to push the lead arm back as far as you can go into the backswing without bending it. So push it back, and there's the end of your backswing right there. So if it goes back far enough, you don't need to add more. If you're standing here and you're going like this, as you're looking at yourself, and your left arm, your lead arm is barely getting to parallel to the ground, well, we have to understand we've got to loosen some pieces up to get more backswing. Now, a simple golf swing has very few moving parts. Now we're talking about adding moving parts and moving them correctly as we go back. So once again, we've done our little test. We've determined that, you know what? I got to get the club back. I got to get more backswing. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to understand lead leg movement. So as we go back, this lead leg, this black portion here, as you look at me, the lead knee has to move inward. If the lead knee is moving forward, watch it from this angle. If the lead knee moves forward, I am not going to be able to make a big turn and get more backswing. The lead knee moves forward, I'm going to tilt. That's not getting me more turn and getting me more backswing. The lead knee has to move inward. So we're going to move the lead knee in. So as you work on getting more range of motion in the backswing, the first thing that has to happen is lead knee has to move inward. We can roll on that lead ankle if we want, but we want lead knee moving in here closer to that knee. We don't want this knee popping out. This holds. Lead knee moves in. As lead knee moves in, this trail hip is going to move south behind you. So lead knee in, hip gets south. I get more hip turn. I can get more turn and get my arms back further. This is a key thing as we look at getting more punch and getting back farther. Knee in, hip back, and that gets us more hip turn and we get back there. Now, if you practice that, and I suggest you start off in your mirror at home, get in your mirror and practice. Watch yourself. Knee in, hip back, trying to get there. As we do that, okay, if we find we're still not getting enough backswing, we're still breaking down here, we're going to add one more moving part. We're going to let the lead foot rise. So this lead foot, I'm going to turn a little at an angle here. I'm going to let it rise. I'm not going to do this action here. I'm going to let it roll inward and rise. So my move is knee in, lead heel rises, and hip gets deep, and that should allow me to get back farther. We've got to get ourselves freed up so we can get back here and then wham, slam through and get more punch. So it's risky to add moving parts, but if we don't have enough speed, we can't get the ball out there far enough to play really good golf. So get in the mirror, do your little test here, and then see as you move, lead knee in, trail hip goes south behind you, that foot rises a little bit. See if it doesn't get you a little more backswing, and we get a little more punch to get the ball out there when you play. Oh my gosh, that Barney Rubble, what an actor, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, sorry. It's the KISS segment. It's Keep It Simple, Strano, where I give you something very simple to help your game. And you know what? I see a ton of players at the golf course with their cell phones, and they have their buddies or themselves on these new fancy stands taking video of their golf swings. And the KISS segment is about how to properly do this and get yourself framed right, where maybe you can see what's going on in your swing. And I'm going to show you a simple graphic line to put in there to help you check the start back to your backswing. So let me show you what it looks like. So here's a couple of my old swings from when I was a tour player. And so you can see back and through, I'm framed nicely in there. I'm going to give you the precise stuff here as you watch this. So when we come back, you're going to see me at setup here. Bang, right at setup. What you notice is I am in the middle of the screen. I'm not over here, I'm not over there. I'm dead in the middle, and it looks like the camera is right at the level of my hands, right here. You don't want to be shooting down this way. You don't want to be shooting up this way, over here, over here. Very important. You're centered in the screen, and you're right on this part. That's super important to getting the right angles. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to put a simple line up the shaft right here. Okay, and we're going to put the line on there. You got it? Okay. Now, watch the club start back. So we're going to start back a couple frames. Boom, boom, boom. A little more coming back. Stop. Perfect. So you can see I want to be coming up this line starting back, and I'm a little above it. Come back a little more for me now. Bang, right there. You can see I came back above that line. Great graphic for you. Put a line on your shaft and make sure you come back on that line, not way behind it this way. This is a really bad way if you come back way underneath it. You can practice it, and you can learn it and get it just right. Keep it simple, Strano. How to get your video right, how to get your graphics right to see what you're doing in your swing. It's the pop culture segment here, and is your golf game risky business? Or maybe your golf swing is getting some risky information, and that's what we're going to talk about in our pop culture segment. Because right now there's some stuff out there that they're talking about in the golf swing that might put your game at risk. And I'm going to explain it here in our pop culture segment. Daredevil, let's come to the big view here. Now, out there right now, there's a lot of conversation about jumping in the downswing, where you come down and you're using the ground to push and jump. So it's a move where you're coming down, you get in a squatty position, and you jump through the hit. Now, that can be risky because there's a couple things that have to happen in order for that to work. And there's a lot of successful tour players that are doing it. Now remember, these are the best athletes in the world out there that practice all day that are making this specific move, but we're hearing a lot about it. So once again, to review, it's here, you come down with a little squat, and then jump, and you see all players up on their toes. You see Bubba Watson and Matthew Wolf. Their lead foot will come back as they swing through. Lexi Thompson does it. But here's what you got to understand. If you are coming down and jumping through the hit, and your foot is backing out, as you jump, you have to maintain side bend being this. If you jump and lose side bend like that, well, I can't get near the ground. So as I jump through the hit and push off the ground, I have to maintain side bend here. The other thing you can't do is you can't stand the club up. When I stand the club up, the toe gets into the ground, and when the toe gets into the ground, the face spins open. So two things you cannot do if you want to work on the risky move of jumping through the hit is you cannot stand up and you cannot stand the club up. I see that error out of players trying to make this move. So remember, it's risky. It's risky business to do this. If you come down and you extend and push and jump, you have to hold side bend, and you've got to keep the club down here on plane and on angle. So pop culture, we went risky business talking about risk in the golf swing. We don't want to mess this up. So as you look about maybe doing this in your swing, understand what you have to do it right.
You want a golf tip that will really make this game easier? Okay, here's mine. The fastest way to get good is by finding a great coach. And the fastest way to find that person is through golfchannelacademy.com. It'll match you up with the best coaches in your area. And now you can even schedule a new student assessment. So, what are you waiting for? Schedule a training session with your local coach, Rob Strano from Strano Golf Academy in Destin, Florida at stranogolf.com.
Well, when we talk about risky stuff, we talk about getting on the greens and getting there safely. My putter cover is Superman because this baby's like Superman to me. I putt so well with it. But the question is, when I get to the greens, how do I get there and avoid risk? And that's what I want to talk about in the strategy segment. I want to give you a sound strategy to approach the greens where you avoid risk and maybe assess the smart way to get to a flag so you can use your Superman, your putter, to knock the ball in the hole, make a bunch of birdies, maybe knock an eagle in. So I got a couple images here. I'm going to explain using a hole exactly how to not be risky as you approach it. So let's bring up the first image here. I'm going to show you what we're looking at. We're looking at a par 3 here. Daredevil, let's come to the wide view. We're looking at a par 3. Starts here, greens here, a deep bunker on this side right here. I mean, when I say deep, I mean over your head deep. You can't get in there. And the green pitches from left to right. So it slopes this way down towards that deep bunker. Now, here's what I want you to think about in your strategy. Bring up the next image. I've drawn a line from the tee through the center line of the green. So I've taken that approach line and I've cut it in 2 halves. So I want you to think about center line. Go to Google Earth, look down on your golf course. There's this cool thing called the internet. You can go there and see things. Go there, get the overhead view of your course, and start drawing some center lines on your holes and see where the middle of this is. Because in this par 3, if you hit it on the center line all times, when the pin's back here behind this deep bunker, you can hit it on the center line and the ball will land on the green and break to the right and curve behind the bunker. And if you hit it straight, you're in the middle. If you pull it a little bit, you're just fine. Find your center line approaches and ask yourself, is the safest thing for me to do is to stay on the center line as I approach this green? You do that, then you can grab Superman and make some birdies. Well, it's time for It's Just Hot Air, and that's brought to you by my friends at Executive Air. This is where I talk about the myths and misconceptions of golf, and we're going to go right to the PGA Tour, and I've got a quiz for you. So everybody, this is going to require you to shout answers back to me, so be ready with your answers to the quiz. Now, what I'm going to talk about is what is perception and what is reality when it comes to how well the PGA Tour players hit a golf ball. Let's go to our first question. Here are the answers to the question. The question is this. On the PGA Tour, how close, what is their proximity to the hole on all approach shots that are on the green? Is it 33 feet, 24 feet, or 26 feet? How close do they hit it with all their clubs? What's the answer? Show them the answer. Ding, ding, ding. If you said A, 33 feet. Now, that's reality. They don't always hit it this close, but TV shows you only the great shots. Question number 2. Here we go. Here are the answers to question number 2. From 125 to 150 yards, how close do they hit it? So short irons, how close do they hit them? 18, 27, or 14? What's the answer? 18 feet. So with short irons, they're not stiffing it all the time either. Last question, here come the answers. 13 feet, 4 feet, 7 feet. The question is this. From 100 yards and closer, what's their average? From 100 yards and closer, what's their average? The answer is 13 feet. That means if they hit 3 shots, okay, they hit 1 at 20 and they hit 1 at 6 to equal 13. That's a 7-yard differential. They're not always stiffing it from 100 yards. So perception and reality, they're totally different. If you answered A to all these, you know what? You got an A on this It's Just Hot Air quiz brought to you by my friends at Executive Air. I am so excited here in the Golf Kingdom to have a member of what I consider golf's royal family as a guest. We've got a royal family of teaching pros in the Harmons, and in my view, the royal family of tour pros is the Golby and Haas's. And I've got third in line Jerry Haas here. He played 115 events in the PGA Tour, and a significant accomplishment of his was when he played the Nike Tour, he won 3 times in 1 year and created the Battlefield promotion. He then went on, after playing professional golf, to be a commentator on Golf Channel for a year, and then went back to his alma mater, Wake Forest University, where he's been one of the greatest coaches in college history with 35 wins in his 22 years as a coach. I'm so excited to welcome my friend Jerry Haas here in the Golf Kingdom. Jerry, how you doing?
Doing great, Rob. Can't believe it's 2020, but beautiful sunshiny day here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina today.
Well, thank you for being with us. And I got to ask you a question. You had a ton of years on the tour as a player. What's something that, as a tour player, helped you be a great collegiate golf coach?
Well, that's a great question, but I think the number one thing is the ability to listen and to take a lesson. As you mentioned, my uncle Bob Golby, he was a wonderful teacher and instructor, played back in the late 50s, the 60s, early 70s. And teaching back then, a lot of guys would kind of try to copy each other and what are you working on? And he was great at bringing stuff off the road. But as a student, you had to be able to listen, you had to be able to take it in and filter through it. And I've been here 23 years at Wake Forest, and I feel like I haven't had too many guys leave with any affliction, so to speak. We try to keep it really simple, really basic ball position alignment, grip, small things like that. So I think that's what's really kind of helped me trend through all the years of the different players. The instructions these young men get before they get here is remarkable. So they come in as really good players, and I maybe just try to put that final finishing touches on it, so to speak.
And that's great information. And going back to your lineage of Uncle Bob Golby, the '68 Masters champion, and your brother Jay, and like I said, you third in line of the royal family, your nephew Bill being fourth in line, and of course your son Kyle, who's going to be a great player coming up. What's one tip from Uncle Bob or Jay when you were a tour player that really maybe helped you take off and play well in a stretch when you're out there playing?
Well, he used to have a thing that he called kind of a bag full of hooks, if you will. He was a big believer in kind of covering that ball with the left hand and the left side. If you're right handed, obviously, if you're left handed, it'd be the other way. So if you got off a little bit, if you got playing poorly, he would kind of put you back to that where you kind of had to hook it around a tree in his yard. And I unfortunately was a big flipper like this, and I hit the tree where, as Jay and Bill and all the others you mentioned, they hooked it around the tree. But that seemed to really, really create a better impact position. And as we know in this game, there's a lot of teaching and everything, but that's the most important part of the swing is impact position. And if you get good there, it can really get you back online really quickly. And obviously, when you play and you compete, the less thought you have in something that small really seemed to help me when I was playing.
I like that. And those simple thoughts, like you said, help you so much as a player. What do you consider to be your most clutch shot you played as a tour player? What's the one that you think back and your heart starts pumping again? You go, oh my gosh, that was my best shot, my greatest shot as a player.
I've got to be the Ozarks Open in 1994. I was playing the Nike Tour. I'd missed 11 cuts in a row. I was playing with David Duval the last day. It was his maybe second or third event as a professional. He had just turned pro from Georgia Tech. And I laid up on the last hole, and I had 88 yards to the hole. And I took a 58-degree wedge, and I hit it about 93, which I never do. I only can hit it about 85 to 88, and I was pumped up, and I hit it long, and it spun back down the hill, and I ended up making it and beating him by a shot. Although I have to back up a little bit. He was in the left rough with about 210 yards to go, all over water on an island green. And I thought he was laying up, to be honest with you. And he hit this 7-iron out of this high rough. Probably to this day, maybe the best shot I've ever witnessed in person. And he hit it about 15 feet. I hit my wedge inside of him. And luckily, he didn't make it, because if he would have made it, I probably wouldn't have made mine. But he tapped in for birdie, and I rolled it in, and kind of got me going. And I ended up winning 2 more times in a span of about 2 months. So I was pretty hot, got back on tour. So that's the one that I'll remember for a long, long time.
That's a great one to remember. And that '94 stretch I mentioned earlier, where you won 3 times, I was in the field in that last win in Sonoma County and made the cut there. And that was a great memory of mine, was being there when you won. And you talked about that hot stretch there. Was there something that kind of clicked that got you on that roll?
I was staying in private housing the week at Ozarks Open, and there was a Golf Digest magazine laying there, and there was an article by Bernhard Langer. He had just won the Masters, and he showed you how to putt like Bernhard Langer by grasping your right hand on there. So I said, well, I can't putt any worse than I am. I've missed 11 cuts in a row. So I said, well, I'm going to try this. And I went to the putting green, and Cricket Mush, who's now one of our great college reps working for Nike Golf, he made a special putter for me, lengthened one, and put it together. And I started walking around the putting green, just holing everything. I'm like, well, might as well try it. And I shot 65 the first day, and then I shot 69. So I finally made a cut. I called my brother up, and he's like, well, what do you think's going to win? I'm like, well, probably 20 under. And he's like, well, you're only 10 under. I don't know why you're so excited. I'm like, oh, well, thanks a lot. I finally made a cut. And he was right, though. He kept me going. And then I shot 3 under the next day. And somehow I rolled that one in on the last hole to win by a shot. And I actually beat a fellow Bellevillian there, and Frank Connor, who was across the water on the putting green getting ready for the playoff. And I thought to myself, I was over it, and I thought of his method, Bernhard's method. I'm squeezing my wrist as hard as I can. I rolled this thing, and it looked good from about 3 feet out. I raised the putter. I'm like, I think I've made this. So anyway, it's a great feeling.
That's awesome. It's great to hear tour players tell stories about wins. And this has been our first segment with Coach Haas. We're going to take this and go out on Roku and Amazon, and he and I are going to talk more. So watch for the Halfway House and a longer segment with Coach Haas when you follow us on our Roku and Amazon channels. So we're going to jump for a commercial real quick. We come back, we're going to have some more great stuff here on the Golf Kingdom. Alexa, open Golf Kingdom.
Welcome to Golf Kingdom. Here's your golf tip of the day.
Welcome to the Golf Kingdom. I am your host, Rob Strano, and here is today's Pro Pointer.
Alexa, stop. If you want more pro pointers from me via your Amazon-enabled skill at the Golf Kingdom, be sure to go there and enable it. Every day I give you a new tip free with your Amazon-enabled device. So enable the Golf Kingdom and you'll get a tip from me, your host, Rob Strano, every day. Welcome to the Golf Kingdom Halfway House. I've brought back our guest, Jerry Haas, and it's the Frantic Five. It's 5 fast questions. Let's see what he's got for us. Jerry, you ready?
I'm ready.
Here we go. Favorite late night guilty pleasure treat? What do you got?
Got to be chocolate peanut butter ice cream from Breyers.
Ooh, man, that just made me hungry. Favorite movie line?
Got to be Major League. Forget about the curveball, Ricky. Give him the heater.
It's 4th and 1. You're at midfield. Are you punting or going for it?
I'm going for it.
I like that. Attaway. I like that
you
aggressive play.
You got to keep going. You got to keep pushing. You can certainly get a yard.
There you go. That's my thoughts exactly. Okay, you've been told in a dream you're going to win the British Open, but you got to either wear a kilt or knickers. Which one you wearing?
Wearing the knickers. Had a young man named Sean Moore that played for me. Won the ACC as a freshman wearing knickers. I'm wearing the knickers.
You're wearing the knickers. I like it. Okay, ready. It's your halfway house. It's your snack bar. Spalding Smales walks up. He says, I want a hamburger or a cheeseburger. Which one are you giving him?
Cheeseburger all the way.
He's getting a cheeseburger. Well, I tell you what, it's my halfway house, and you get nothing like it like Spalding. Thanks for playing, Coach Haas. We'll be back with more from him in a minute here in the Golf Kingdom. You struggle with your hands being too active when you putt? Well, Fusion Dynaline Training Aid is what you need to putt better. It clamps on your putter, you drop your alignment stick in the training aid, you put the training trident on the top of it, and then it touches your body and locks your stroke in place. It's impossible to wiggle your hands. Get Fusion Dynaline to control your stroke. Visit fusionputting.com, place your order, and get free shipping today. I am Special Agent R. This is GIB, Golfer in Black Headquarters, and I'm here to help you with those things that maybe you don't know as a player that the tour players know. The PGA Tour, LPGA players know these special tricks and tips that you don't know as a player. I've got a really good one for you today. This one will help you with those tight holes where you're nervous on the tee, you're worried about losing a golf ball. Maybe it's a hole you always have trouble with, make a big number on with, because you get on the tee and you hit it off into trouble. Now, I'm going to share with you one of the tightest, toughest holes I've ever seen, and it's the 14th hole at Victoria National Golf Club in Indiana. Here's what it looks like from the tee. Check this image out. From the tee, you come across the water. It's a narrow fairway. There's gigantically tall grass on the right, gigantically tall grass on the left. I mean, waist high. You hit it in there, you're not finding it. It swerves through the trees, a little narrow fairway. It's a very hard driving hole. Here's what it looks like from the top now. From the top, you tee off over here across the water. You can see how narrow the fairway is coming through the trees and coming through, like I said, tall grass on either side. Now, here's another view of this hole where you can really see looking down through it. Wow, you can see how narrow it is. So what's the trick? What's the thing tour players know that you don't know? When you face a hole that's tough, that's tight, that you're worried about losing a ball, don't tee at your normal height, squeeze it down. Tee it half the normal height, just maybe a half an inch high or a 3/4 of an inch high. That'll get the ball going out there lower. That ball will hit and roll up the fairway. You don't have to fly it way out there where it's in the air and it flies and it gets crooked on you. Keep it low, hit it out there low, and roll it where it's got to be. This is your tour player GIB trick. Tee it low, roll it out there, and keep the ball out of the air. And I bet you'll lose less golf balls on those tight, tough holes. We are back with our guest, Coach Jerry Haas from Wake Forest University. And like I said, one of the best tour players out there. When you've got a tour, the PGA Tour and the Nike Tour had to make a rules change because you won 3 times, you know you are legit one of the best players out there. And I want to ask you, you've had some great players come through Wake Forest: Webb Simpson, Bill Haas, Kyle Reifers, Will Zalatoris. You know, there's a story you tell about recruiting Webb. Tell our viewers about you watching Webb play and you recruiting him to Wake Forest.
Well, I went down to Bowie's Creek. I heard about this kid, Webb Simpson. And I went down there, and he was actually paired with Brendan Todd, who's been incredibly hot at the end of 2019 on the PGA Tour. And he was paired together, and I kind of went down there, and Webb started chatting to me, and I'm like, no, Webb, I can't talk to you. That's against the rules. He's like, oh, okay, all right, sorry. So he plays the first hole, and then I'm standing by the second tee, and he's like, hey, Coach, I starts asking me more questions. I'm like, Webb, I can't talk to you. Oh, okay, I'm sorry about that. Well, anyway, so I started, making sure I stayed ahead of him, and he's playing okay. And we get to the 6th hole, par 5, and he hits his second shot into the bunker. And the pin, he's pulled it left of the green, and the bunker kind of curves in a little bit, and his ball kind of goes up against it, and he's got no backswing to go to the pin. So he's got to aim over the green, if you will, like he's aiming at 6 o'clock, and he's got to make the ball go dead to the right. So I'm kind of looking up there. He's walking up, and I'm thinking, you know what? If he opens the face, stands outside the bunker, he can jam that club up against the lip and get the ball to squirt to the right. I wonder if he'll see that. So he walks up there, and he kind of looks at it, doesn't get mad, doesn't throw a fit about the bad lie. Obviously, he hit a bad shot there. And he looks, and he realizes he has no backswing that way. So he looks behind the green like I thought he might, and he stands outside, and he opens that club wide open, and he takes his swing and jams it against the lip of the bunker. The ball shoots out dead to the right, hits on the green, kind of spins right, and rolls down there about 3 feet away. And I'm standing there by myself, no other coaches around, and I'm looking over my shoulder, and I'm just saying, man, did I believe what I just saw? And I'm thinking to myself, man, I got to get this guy. I got to have this kid at Wake Forest. And he ended up coming on the Arnold Palmer Scholarship, and what a wonderful career he had at Wake, and obviously doing fantastic as a pro. And you mentioned the Arnold Palmer Scholarship, which you attended also as a Wake Forest student on the Arnold Palmer Scholarship. And I know in your office there, you've got Mr. Palmer right over your shoulder there, don't you? What a great picture of him in his master's jacket. Tell our viewers a story from Wake Forest University. We know we got a lot of stories about Mr. Palmer, but give us one that happened there at Wake Forest, maybe with the players or something there at the university with you. Well, we have our Pro-Am every other year, and I think it was maybe the last times or one of the second to last times that Mr. Palmer came back. And we had a Sunday night party, and he was gracious that night and all around signing autographs. We played Monday. I walked him up to his car. He looked around. There was hardly anybody there, no people left. He got in his car. He put it in reverse, was backing up, and some lady kind of came out of nowhere and had a book, and you could see she was holding it up, and she had a pen. And he slowly just put it back into drive, pulled back into his parking spot, put it in park, turned it off, got out of the car, and he engaged this lady probably for about 10 minutes. Asked where she was from, talked to her, Hope you enjoyed the day. And he signed that her book, and just beautiful penmanship. Arnold Palmer, something we try to teach the young guys today, to make sure when you sign your name, make sure people can read it, and so they know what autograph they got. And he took the time, gave her back the book. She was very thankful. She left. He looked around. No one else was there. He shook my hand and said, "Thank you for everything." And obviously I thanked him, and he backed up and away he went. But just a genuine man, just a wonderful human being for sure.
And that's one of the things I remember as a player that I always stuck to, was making sure my signature was legible whenever I signed it. That was something I took from him. We talked about Webb, we've talked about Mr. Palmer, but your nephew, I know you're proud of Bill Haas and his success he's had as a tour player. Give us a good Bill Haas story.
Oh man, Bill won 10 times here at Wake Forest. Was the all-time and is the all-time leader in career wins at Wake. Passed a lot of great players, Lanny Watkins and Gary Hallberg and Curtis Strange, and he was a very fast player. He's still very fast, but I mean, he would play in college. He'd outdrive guys by 30 yards, and their ball would still be in the air, and his would be in the air. And I kept saying, "Bill, you got to get better with your wedges. These guys are hitting 7 and 8 irons back here, and their ball hasn't even hardly landed, and you're hitting yours 25, 30 feet. You're not gaining any advantage. You need to take a little more time and work on your wedge game." And he's like, "Yeah, I guess you're right." But he slowed down a little bit through the years. But, I mean, he won 10 times, runner-up at the NCAA to Ryan Moore up at the Homestead. We had a great finish, third at the NCAA with him. He was a fantastic teammate. I think another coach who's now retired, Richard Sykes at NC State, used to call him the eraser, because he erased a lot of bogeys that some of the other teammates made. But he's got many records here, 15 consecutive rounds of under par in a row. And then he had another stretch of 11, another one of 9. So he wasn't afraid to shoot a good score, which made me look like a great coach.
One of my favorite people to hang around with in golf is your Uncle Bob Goldie. I've known, him since I was 4 or 5 years old, from St. Clair Country Club, where we all grew up. And, you had his wit and wisdom in your ear your whole life. Give everybody a couple of Uncle Bob-isms that are things that, you always think of, in your mind when you're thinking about golf. What are some things he always let, you and Jay hear?
Boy, Uncle Bob was great. He was a wonderful teacher, played with us a lot. And that's something that I've tried to stress as a coach, is my uncle always felt, you can hit all the balls you want, but until you can apply it to the course, different shadows, different winds, different lies, it's great to hit balls, but you got to be able to put it in motion. And he spent a lot of time with us at St. Clair Country Club, a course that both you and I grew up at. And it had almost every shot we needed. Some of the things I always remember with him were ball position and alignment. My tendency was to get where I'd aim to the right and feel like I had to come over it to try to get on top of it, where he would always say, if you check the small things, the little things, and you're a little bit off, a bucket of balls here or there is going to get you right back on track. He wasn't a big believer in changing a lot, like, oh, you got to do this or wait. He didn't wait for you to hit a bad shot and then say, oh, here's what you got to do. Because in golf, you got to get your way out of trouble. You're going to hit bad shots. So he was wonderful. Probably the one thing I remember, the second hole was a par 3 at St. Clair, still is. And I hooked it left, and it was down under this tree, had to go over a bunker on the hard mud down there. And I said, man, how do you play this shot? And he said, well, let me show you. You go real stiff-wristed with hardly any wrist break, open the face just slightly, and act like you have a book on top of your head, but you don't want that thing to fall. And it may come off a little lower, but it'll have a lot of spin. And I tried it the first time and got it over the bunker on the green, and I've been thinking of that ever since. And that was just kind of the teacher and the player and the man that he was. He was incredible with his time, and that's what it takes to be a good college coach. You got to have a lot of time. You've got usually 10 guys on your team that want your energy and your expertise, so to speak. And so you got to remember that they're wanting to get better at it. So you got to give them good advice. But I look back, I had a Uncle Bob Golby, I had a brother Jay Haas, I got a nephew Bill. So I've had some pretty good golf played around me, and it's really helped me as a coach.
See, you just named off the royal family of golf right there with all those great players. And, you know, you said the simple things, and that's so key. Sometimes it's the simple things that get you on a hot streak like you had in '94. So one last quick question. We talked about Mr. Palmer. We've talked about your Uncle Bob and Jay. But who's one person that's outside of that group that's inspired you, that you kind of looked up to, you know, maybe from another sport that you said, you know, that person has kind of helped me get to a greater level, whether it's as a player or as a coach?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I try to read a lot. I try to, you know, read different things. I read a great article about Urban Meyer, the coach at Ohio State. Obviously, I love all sports. I love college football. The Deacons had a great year this year. I got to go up to the Pinstripe Bowl at Yankee Stadium. Never been there before. Took my wife, Beth. We had a wonderful time. But college football and the plays that go on and the things that happen and the different moments in time, kind of like a round of golf. It's, you know, it might start great in a football game, but then you have the middle of the game's not so good. But then if you finish it off well, kind of like a round of golf, you feel like you're, you know, you had a good day. And there was a great article about Urban Meyer and about his routine. And one of the things that he said is if you do the simple things, the routine, and you do them every day to be habits, they become your strengths. And so I really try to believe in that. I stretch every day and I stretch every night. Players give me a hard time. Man, you stretch a lot. I'm like, well, I do. I'm getting older, and I realize the value, probably the unhidden gem of all pro golfers. If you look to ones that are really flexible and can get the club in a good position, not only at the top, but coming through the ball with extension and flexion of your body going through there. You look at those guys, they're the best players, and they stay relatively injury-free, and they hit the ball a long way, even though they're not the biggest of guys. So I would say Urban Meyer is somebody that comes to mind as somebody outside of golf that I really admire.
Another great, successful coach. And I've had a great time having you, a Wake Forest successful college coach, as a guest here in the Golf Kingdom. Jerry, thanks so much for spending time with our viewers and from Golf's Royal Family, sharing some superb insights into the game. It's been great having you here, my friend.
Rob, thank you. It's always great talking to you as well, and I wish you the very best of luck.
Thanks a bunch for being with us here on the Golf Kingdom. Well, it's a time to rise, and we're a little bit into the new year. We're into 2020, and I know at the start of the year, you decided, I'm going to make a resolution. I'm going to resolve to do this. You know, I know I resolved to maybe not eat so many double stuffed Oreos this year. I mean, each one of those feels like I got to do 50 crunches when I eat one, but I love double stuffed Oreos. So we're into making resolutions. So what I want you to think about is this. Whatever resolution you made for life, let's talk about the golf side of resolutions. Because what I see players do is they resolve to get better at golf. Well, that's a big, broad thing. I could get better at bunker shots, flop shots, bump and run shots, knockdown shots, shots off a side hill line, driver, long irons, short irons, chips, putts. There's a whole lot. Trouble shots. I can resolve to get better at a bunch of stuff. What I want you to do is I want you to resolve right off the bat to get better at one thing. Just one thing. Pick something. You know what? I want to be a better driver of the ball. Get with your coach. Go find a Golf Channel Academy coach. Go find a good coach in your area and say, look, I want to get better at this one thing. Get better at that. And when you've got it, say, okay, I want to get better at this thing. It's like climbing a set of stairs. You've got to build your game. We're about building in the Golf Kingdom one step at a time. So pick the things you need to get better at. Or maybe go do a playing lesson with your coach and ask him, what do you see I need to get better at? And come up with your staircase. Get those resolutions in golf. The one thing to get better at in your game and the one thing to get better at in life. Stick to the one things. Don't start adding stuff. One things. And you find that you'll get better at following through on your resolutions and getting better at what you're trying to do. Thanks for joining me on this risky episode of the Golf Kingdom where we've got the exploding Jenga going now. We've got some great stuff out there on social media. Be sure to jump out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to follow us, as well as our YouTube channel where we've got the shows. Also, you can check us out at Alexa. If you have an Alexa device, enable the Golf Kingdom skill, and you'll get tips from me every day to help your game. Also, to get more from Coach Jerry Haas, our guest, be sure to add our Roku and our Amazon Fire TV channels. You can go there, add Amazon Fire and Roku, the Golf Kingdom there, add those, and you'll get all of the extra stuff we shoot with our guests in studio. Thanks again for joining us on our risky version, is it going to explode or not? Our risky version of the Golf Kingdom. It's gonna explode sometime, I think. I mean, oh, there it was.